Hey,
We are live.
supposedly we are live.
That's what it says. I will check on the phone here.
Yep, it looks like we might be live according to the interwebs. Yeah, we are live. Cool. How's that look on your end?
Well, it shows it being live on your channel. I'm not sure how it connects to mine, but that's not a big deal.
Oh, it's a big deal.
I don't care. It's streaming on one of them. Let me look again on the panel here. Yeah, it seems like it's working. I guess. I don't know. We're fine. Is anybody on the thing?
Probably not, because we didn't plan this very well.
No, that's okay. Hopefully people will jump on. I'll post some shit about it in the Instagram. Zip is here. And Easy Tool. Toots. Easy Toots.
Hey, Toots. What's up, guys? What's up, guys? Maybe we should send a message in the Discord.
Server. Yeah, Discord stopped working on my phone permanently. I've uninstalled it and reinstalled it. It just won't work. Pretty cool. But yeah, if you mention it on there. Well...
Yeah, I'll jump on there. Let's see.
All right.
Yo, dudes. Hey. Okay. So, we got some folks in here. Yeah. Hey, man, I'm on a roll. I was on ban list, and now Steven and I are starting our show in which we don't plan and we just talk about stuff and call it shooting the shit. That's what we're doing. We're gonna shoot the shit. Steven and I usually hang out whenever we get a chance virtually, so we're just gonna live stream it every once in a while now. So here we go.
Yo, Big Mig.
Miguel, my buddy Miguel. I hope you're doing well. Congratulations on the career change, my friend. Miguel has a bunch of Solar guitars.
Well, that's awesome.
And I think he bought Ola's old travel case for his guitars from him.
Well, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Very cool.
The fellas in Byzantine are Solar artists now.
Are they?
Yeah.
Awesome.
The bass player and the other guitar player are both playing Solar stuff.
That is sick.
Yeah.
I think I knew that.
Maybe. Brian Henderson is the guitar player. He was with Solar pretty early, and then the newer bass player is also playing them. And OJ's been with Schecter for like 20 years now.
Dope. That's awesome.
Yeah, they make some actually pretty nice custom shit for him. They used to be with Ibanez way back in the day. At the height of that era.
All right. So, buddy, what's up? How are you?
I'm pretty well. You know, I'm stuck in the States for another couple of days.
Yeah, that was a whole debacle, huh?
Yeah, I learned a fucking serious lesson. And
you know what though? We were talking. It's going to lend itself to be two cool guitars now, I think. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to make a video about failure. So that's...
Yeah, do you want to fill people in on what happened a little bit?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I had a Gibson RD body copy made by a guy, Rosser Guitars, who at the time was doing a little bit of custom-y stuff, and now he is just doing prefab stuff. Neither here nor there. Got it with the intention of turning it into a bass 6, but I went ahead and finished the body, and I'd ordered the neck, and there are a couple problems there. Like the body needed to have things moved and rerouted in order to accommodate the neck because of the scale length. And it was either going to be like tearing up the body in order to make the neck work, or just kind of using having to use the body and the neck for two separate builds, because it just wasn't going to work together without completely destroying the body. And had I not painted it and done the finishing work to it, then it would have all been able to be done, and then I could do the finishing work posthumously.
Yeah.
But since I already finished it at this point, to like cut it all up and drill into it, and you're gonna have to put dowels in the holes and all that stuff, it just would fuck the whole thing up.
Yeah.
So lesson learned, but the plus side to it is that when I have the money put back, I can get another neck and make it into something else that's cool without having to worry. And I think my next plan is to buy a template to make my own Gibson RD body with a luthier buddy of mine. So, and then I will make it specifically for the 30-inch neck and whatnot.
It's going to be cool.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, finally.
Hello, Rose. Yeah, it's a thing. So did this go to Bandless or did it go to your thing?
It went to mine.
Okay.
I just went to the Bandless Discord.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, anyway, it'll be cool. I think what I'm going to do is I have that turquoise telly that has the like Gibson headstock on it, the Baritone, the one I brought to your place a few months back. I'm just going to get another neck basically the same as that one, because it's a nice one, and just put it on the RD body, and then I'll have another 28 and 5/8 Baritone that stays. One of the two will stay in the States, and one of them will stay in Canada. That way I can get the use out of it.
I need to finish that thing back there. I keep dragging my feet. I just got to make a list and order the parts, really.
Yeah.
I got those pickups in a cart from Guitar Fetish.
Man, pull the trigger on them because they sell out quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll order them tonight then.
Yeah, everything's been cleared out with all because they've extended like their Christmas and Black Friday stuff all the way through January.
Yeah, that's right. An interesting conversation I had with I can't remember how I got a hold of. Oh, that's right. I think I told you. Seymour Duncan saw my Power Stage video.
Yeah.
And somebody reached out to me. And I started a conversation with the gal. I'm trying to remember like what she first said when she reached out. I'm having a hard time remembering now. But long story short, I think I'm going to get a discount code to order a set of pickups that I can buy whatever set of pickups. She gave a suggestion for a pair. They are pretty hot, and I told her like, that's cool. She didn't like say like you should do a video on this set. Mm-hmm. She was just like, you could, because it's a great set that doesn't get a lot of love. I'm like, that's cool, but I'm kind of looking at something a little more lower gain, not super hot.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, she's going to get me a promo code so that I can get a set of Duncans, and maybe I'll put it in that thing back there, depending on what they are. Or I have this old SE of mine that I have torn apart, my first PRS SE. It's all like kind of gutted right now.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to clean it up and give it to my son, but it has no pickups in it either, so it could go in there.
The the Seymour 59 Custom Hybrid is like the most intriguing pickup they make, in my opinion.
Nice.
Because you've got like the traditional 59 is like the original replacement pickup that Seymour Duncan made.
Yeah.
But it's that, but with the option of like a pull tap thing that makes it a more modern thing. And it's still passive, so it's much more in the realm of the OG medium output 59, but also with the pull tap, it brings in some of the tonal characteristics of the more modern stuff like the JB.
Yes.
So it's a more versatile pickup overall because it's much more responsive to dynamics and stuff. It's the only pickup they make right now that I'm like kind of on the fence of ordering, and I haven't ordered a pickup from them in years just because I got hooked on the cheaper pickups and but yeah, hello Electric Meat. Yeah, if I were going to go with one, it would be that. I think I've had Invaders over the years and I hated them.
Yeah, I don't know if I think I have what did I put in that fucking blue? I think I had some or were those are DiMarzios. Never mind.
Yeah. Duncan Distortion's okay. It's quite hot.
Yeah.
Does sound good, but it's very hot. It's hard.
I don't know if I've had a set of Duncans in a long while. What's up, Synth Chris?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hey,
I got hooked on DiMarzios a while back, and I really enjoyed them. And then I got some Fluence Moderns in my Tremonti SE that I love in that guitar, but I just played a guitar. We were talking about this. I just played a Epiphone SG, and it had Fishmans. It had a custom set of Fishmans they make for that particular guitar.
Yeah,
was not a fan of how they sounded. I guess there's all sorts of, they had a push-pull in the volume and the tone, and any one of those combinations has a different pickup flavor.
Sure.
And I just couldn't vibe. In all fairness, I had the guitar for a few days. I was doing some video work for them, but I guess maybe in my old age, I'm just getting like, if I can't get a good sound right away, I'm just like, what the fuck? But yeah, and then the Duncan Solars, I guess those are Duncans, right? Those I like in my regular 25.5-inch scale Solar, and then I put DiMarzio. What did I put in that baritone?
Do you have Titan or Omega? Or
Titans.
Okay.
Titans. Yeah. Which I know are hot, but I think it rolls off the low end in such a nice way that I don't need to push the gain on some of the amps when I'm playing that low.
Yeah.
So they work out. But what I'm trying to get at is when you were down with your guitar and you had those low output pickups in your baritone, I fucking loved how they sounded and felt through my own presets, right away. So
they're just more responsive to dynamics and how hard you play. It's going to affect, and you don't have to hold back. You can really go all in with your playing and get what you want out of it versus like worrying about clipping or having to adjust your gate as much. And you're hearing the guitar in a much more natural state that way. I know people you like what you like. I got no beef with high output pickups. I have guitars with them, but
same.
I've come to find as I get older that there's a reason that some of the older traditional things are still a thing. And most of it's just because they work and they're really the most bare bones version of a thing. The closest version to your, what your guitar might sound like naturally amplified.
Yeah.
But they're all going to have their characteristics. I really like P90s, so that's why I went with that. What's up, Reed?
Makes sense.
With that pickup, because I wanted a noise cancel P90, but there's a characteristic about that particular pickup, which the Dream 180, that is It's different than a P90 significantly. It does kind of have some of the mid-range scoop, but it's a lesser output than what a P90 would be. I don't know, man. It's like a $35 pickup, sometimes less than that if there's a coupon code. And it sounds amazing and works really well for low tuning. And I don't know. I've had the crunchy pats from them from GFS before.
Which pickups are we talking about again?
The Dream 180s.
The Dream 180s. That's right. I might just order a set while we're talking about it.
Do it. I've had those. I've had the Fat Pat. I've had and I still do have their VEH, which is called the Vintage Extra Hot, but it's clearly designed to mimic the Eddie Van Halen humbucker sound from that 80s era. And it does a good job with that, but I had it in Jazzmaster Baritone, and it just didn't sound very good in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I yanked it and put back in the original pickups that were in the Jazzmaster, which were a P90 style pickup, not a traditional Jazzmaster pickup.
Are you taking advantage of their quick plug system?
It's a pan kind of thing. Sure. It's a PAF type thing. Yes, it's a more bass heavy PAF. I do use quick plug. I have had problems with it.
Got it.
I did just buy 2 of the adapters to where you can just put them on any pickup. So I'm going to give that a shot. That way, if I get something like one of the Seymours or something, I can put it on there and just pop it in or out of the guitar. I like it in theory. You have to pay attention to it when you order it because the quick plug for single coils is different than the quick plug for humbuckers.
Mm.
And if you
but they're detachable, right? Like
correct.
You can take it off. Okay.
Yeah. What happens is instead of you soldering the wires permanently to the guitar, you solder the connection to the pickup itself. And then it's just like a tiny, like it's smaller than a 1/4-inch jack for your headphones.
Yeah.
It's a smaller version of that just plugs into the back of the pickup, like my pantomiming.
Yes.
Anyway, we should talk to people that are talking to us because I feel like we're ignoring what's happening here.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. I saw. So a couple quick things.
DiMarzio deactivators. I have not used. I do know someone that has them and gets good tones with them.
Yeah, Synth Chris, I'd be curious what pickup. So Synth Chris did a live stream where he was just kind of composing the other day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the guitar, Synth Chris, if the guitar was something you composed or if you were collaborating. But I liked the tone in that guitar tone. Wow, what a sentence.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, if you could shed some light on what that was, that'd be great. Okay, cool sentencing. Here's one. Favorite pups are the Chapman Henchmans from the ML3 Bay. Yeah, I don't know. Can you buy Chapman pickups nowadays? Straight from them?
I don't know. I know they were stock with them, and I think they were using the same distributors as the factory was sharing with, I want to say ESP and Schecter somewhere overseas for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I may be wrong on that. I know that they shared a factory with another company because that's very normal shit. But I don't know. I don't know if you could buy them separately. They may be a version of a thing. They may be made by one of the bigger companies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's probably the case. This is a question for you, since you're the master cab builder.
Oh yeah, working on building first 212. My favorite thing. Yeah. Depends what you're after. V30s, traditional actual V30s, are a little brighter than people anticipate them to be, especially when you're right in front of them. Weber stuff is nice, but there's a company called WGS Warehouse Guitar Speakers.
Mm-hmm.
when I was building cabs, I had a deal with them to where I could order from them at cost. They have versions of the vintage 30 that are EQ'd slightly different. So they have one called a retro 30, which is more similar to a traditional V30. And then they have, what's the other one? Let me pull it up. It's called a veteran 30, vet 30, which is kind of a combination of a greenback and a vintage 30. And that in particular is my favorite pick, or that and the Reaper or the Reaper HP. The combination of those two is really amazing because the Reapers have more low end response and a little less high end. So they're kind of low and low mid. And the the Vet 30 is more mid and high end. So the combination of the two really balances out nice. Out front of the cab, if you're miking them, if you do stereo miking, you can get some really nice combinations. That would be my suggestion for like cost effective stuff. It's still, so they're still expensive, but like they're cheaper than going to Celestion. Aside from that, Eminence, they make great speakers that are often fairly price effective as well, or cost effective. Swamp things are cool if you want low tuned stuff. If you're doing like sludgy stuff, they are really responsive to that. Texas Heats are good if you want something that's kind of trebly. I have an Eminence Wizard and a vintage 30 in a cabinet, like together, and that combination sounds really good. It's all just kind of about whatever your taste is. You can kind of look up, like, if you know what you like already, you can look up speakers that are kind of in that world and make a decision.
Get like a profile of the speaker and perhaps blend a couple.
And one thing I will say, if you're wanting to get something that's lighter physically, because the magnets are, kind of what make the weight, of course. Celestion does make what they call Neo creambacks and Neo vintage 30s.
Yep.
And they're neodymium magnets instead of traditional magnets. And the only reason I suggest that is if you're actually in Hawaii, it's going to be cheaper to get those shipped because they're lighter. If
cool.
That makes sense.
So that's some good info.
We move up the chain here.
Can you see the chat?
Yeah, I can see it. I can't pull anything up from it, but I can see it.
Synth. Talking about splits on humbuckers. So Synth Chris shed some light on my terrible question. He says that was all me using my Warmoth Baritone Strat with a DiMarzio deactivator in the bridge, threw a coil split on it, used my repitch to tune down too. Wow. Okay. Sounded good, man.
Man, I'm kind of discovering, especially like having been playing bass six a little bit more in a heavier context, that single coils like tend to actually sound a little bit better when you get super low. Noisier for sure, but they definitely have more, because you get low enough, you don't want as much of the sub frequency anyway, so you're just getting mostly attack with them, but it seems to really do a nice job. Yes.
What do they make a 30-inch neck?
Yeah, that's what I ordered.
Okay.
You order the base
six specific,
base six neck. The thing is, and what I learned the hard way, they are only designed to work with their body or for you to fully fabricate a body around it. So, yes, they make one. And I think I got that neck pretty cheap. It was like $160. It wasn't too bad.
Really?
Yeah, after shipping it was like $200, but like, and the shipping was bullshit, but because UPS is super cool. Anyway, yeah, you can do that. You can order one from them. My suggestion to you, because I literally just went through this, is
order a body through them too.
Order their basics body, order their basics neck, and it will go together completely smooth with no trouble. And you can custom design the pick guard and the routing and all that stuff on their site. So that's the best way. It's going to cost you more money because you're, fully having them fully fabricate something.
Yeah.
But it's going to be incredibly well made, and it will fit together without issue. The thing where I fucked up is I got one and assumed that I would be able to retrofit a pre-existing body to work with it, and I could have, but I would have also had to basically destroy the body in order to do it.
But now you can just order a body and not have it finished, correct?
You can. You can order from them and not have any of the routing done, and that's another. I didn't know that, but also their bodies are much more expensive. I don't tend to get bodies through Warmouth.
Right. And the only reason I ask is like if you're kind of looking for a more cost-effective way to get your hands on a Warmoth 30-inch base 6 neck, you could get the neck, get a body without some of the options. I mean, you're probably going to want some routing done. Um, but I know usually a finish can add a few $100 on to the cost of a body at Warmoth. But
A lot of their body options, particularly, you have to look at them because every shape has a different option set.
yeah,
So, like the base 6 bodies, they don't have many option sets other than like you use that body and you can do the options that are available to it, but you can't take another body and be like set it up to be for a base 6. It's just not a thing, and you can't completely remove neck pockets. The neck pocket itself is where the problem lies, the neck pocket and the bridge placement. So you can get rid of the bridge placement. You can completely have that removed on pretty much all of them.
I have an idea, but I'm going to talk about it after the stream with you.
Okay. But got hair in my mouth. Pretty cool for a bald guy.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, you can't remove the neck pocket, and that's really where the problem with that and the bridge, like I said, are where everything gets tricky, because if the neck pocket is not correct for the butt of the neck, I have them in the closet, or I just show you what happened with it, but then it won't connect to the body properly, and you have to route out the neck pocket, which can be very tricky, and it requires a lot of precise measurement and templates. And the bridge itself can kind of the placement of the bridge can determine a lot too. So if the neck is the right size or the right place in the neck, or fuck me, man, if the body and the neck pocket are where they should be, if the bridge placement isn't correct, then the neck isn't going to work with it anyways. So
yes.
What happened with mine, when I measured it out, the position from the bridge to the nut was 31 inches instead of 30. And that starts to throw things off, and how the body responds, like how you can intonate and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Since it's not a conversion neck, it's just a neck on its own and a body on its own. They're not designed for one another. So I learned it the hard way. So now I'm going to end up with 2 guitars, which is not a bad thing. It's just going to take me about 3 to 6 months longer than I anticipated.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got some other questions here.
Yeah, which one are you thinking?
Let's see here. Well, it looks like there's some discussions.
Yeah, I see some discussions about neck sizes and some speakers. Here's a comment about speakers.
Reed. Well, we got that.
Yep.
So the Vintage 30 and the G12 are similar to the Vet 30 and the Reaper combo. They're kind of the same thing. Designed to be modeled after one another.
I'll just start pulling a few.
My suggestion, if you're going with that, Rose, is to have a luthier on call, because that's how I figured out my issue with mine when I was starting to put it together. Some of it was obvious, but some of it wasn't. And if you've got somebody that truly knows their shit, then you won't have any issues with, putting things together. Or even if you get to where you've accumulated all the parts and you do assemble it, and there's some weirdness with setup and certain things that you're for some reason not able to piece together, having someone who's a professional is a good option, even if it costs you a little money. If you may end up with a guitar you don't want to play because it doesn't play the one way you want to play it, or completely unplayable instrument, versus just taking it to someone who can make it something you really want to play and love. Let's see.
Good advice. Where I just saw one. Let's see.
Yes, we are on Restream, Chris.
Well, they sell cabs on Amazon, huh?
Yeah, you can get orange cabs on there too on Continental. Seismic stuff it's good if you don't want to do anything yourself, but the reality of it is it's just birch plywood with Tolex on it. So if you have the tools and the patience, you can do that yourself and make it whatever you want. It's not easy and it's going to be time consuming, but it's all relative to what you want to do. And if you just want a cab that's finished, they're good cabs. They're probably not going to be the most resonant cabs and not, not super durable, but it's an option.
Yeah, yeah, you just answered this.
Yeah.
We're using Restream again just because
It works.
It
when
works.
When it works, it works. When it doesn't, it's bullshit.
Yeah. Chris sent me some information on being able to pull, with a Chrome extension, being able to pull comments into an OBS setup like this, which is very intriguing. I just haven't had time since Chris to mess with it.
I set that up in when I was using OBS a couple times. I figured out how to do that. It works. I couldn't put them on the screen, but I could have the entire chat conversation.
Yeah, I know how to put the entire chat up, which is cool. I just know I've also had people like bitch about it being up, and you know.
Also, what a silly thing to complain about.
Well, you know how the internet is. Come on, man.
Yeah, I get it. It just seems like
the things I've had people comment on the thickness of my glasses. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You had a guy yell at you about your couch.
Oh yeah, he didn't think it was very professional of me to have that couch back there. Dummy.
Not very professional of him to give a shit about your furniture.
Right.
I realize that I'm eating candy on camera or on the microphone. I apologize, everyone.
Who cares? It's fine. We're shooting the shit here. What would you
We should have a bell that goes off every time you say that.
Oh, yeah, we really should.
What would you suggest for ready-made cabs?
I'll just interject because I don't know much about this topic. I did at one time when I played bass. I bought a sonic cab for the the cab itself, and I put in speakers of my choice, eminent speakers of my choice, and wired it up and everything, which was nice. So I think there's a couple different approaches. I'm sure you'll be able to shine more light on this topic.
Yeah, there's really nothing wrong with getting the prefab ones if you get the sound you want out of them. The problem is that if you have something like that shipped and then discover you don't like it once you've loaded it, then you've got a whole other problem on your hands.
Yeah.
I agree with Poo Ninja. Avatar is the company to go to if you want prefabricated cabinets, loaded or unloaded. I've owned 3 Avatar cabs. They're amazing cabinets. They're large custom cabinet. I think they call it the Classic or something. Is basically the same construction as an orange cabinet. And the other one is essentially the smaller one, which I think is the Contemporary, is essentially a Bogner cabinet. So that would be who I would suggest. My Emperor makes great stuff, very expensive, and you do get what you pay for, but it's going to be a lot better. Avatar is the choice. My laptop is currently sitting on top of an Avatar cabinet.
I've heard good things about coffee cabs, but they're a European company. The guy Roman from Ginger uses them. I want to say Eugene might use them for his bass cab as well, but
I've heard seen good those. Things. They actually look nice. Yeah,
they're beautiful. They are beautiful. But
there's another company that I have, because I have a few other. When I was building cabinets, I was looking at companies that made prefab stuff, because when you're doing something like that, because I'm a cheater, I try to find prefabricated ones so that I can take them apart and look at how they're doing things. Mojo Tone would be the primary suggestion that I have. And that's I don't know how well that's translating. It looks very shiny, but
that's interesting.
Mojo Tone is a great option, and they ship worldwide. They make a lot of really cool stuff, and they sell speakers on their site too. And I'm trying to think.
Here, I can probably pull it up here.
Yeah. That would be my main suggestion. And there's a company called Sunset, Sonset, that makes orange cab copies in whatever color you want. They are unloaded. They are about $300 plus shipping, which is super fair. That would be my other suggestion. But if you want something that's super high quality and fairly inexpensive, Mojo Tone or Emperor would be my, or not Emperor, Avatar. We're talking about too many cab companies. Mojo Tone's got all kinds of shit. You can build amps through them and everything. So it's.
Oh, that's amazing. I've been really considering doing some pedal kits. Just why not? Because I'm dumb and I want to get my hands into more shit that I don't finish. But then building an amp would be so sick. But I don't. Yeah, that's for another. That's maybe for my 50s.
Well, if you get to where you understand the electronic schematics and you can start out with stuff like a pedal, that information will transfer into something larger.
That's it. Exactly. That's kind of exactly what I was thinking too. Like get my feet wet with some pedals, and I think it'd be cool to like, even if it's just a clone of something. Like I want to make a fuzz pedal just because, and have it with my own kit. It'd be cool. But yeah. What else?
Yeah, they make prefab kits on Amazon. You can buy them.
Right. There's a specific kit that I watched a bunch of videos on that I really like, but I don't fucking remember it. I'll have to go looking for it.
You are correct. HM2's rule, Chris. God City makes amazing prefab PCB boards. And I've built one of theirs, and my dude Sean that's in the band with me has built one. They make a mod on the HM2, and I don't know, there's a bunch of them out there. HM2s are super cool and pretty heavily moddable if you do it from that. But there you go. Lots of options out there.
So these are kits? Oh, these are assembled pedals. Hi, Reed.
He does do kits. It just sells the PCB boards as well. There you go.
Oh.
And then you just buy the casing and the knobs and all that shit. They're pretty cool, and they say like what each pedal is and what the circuits are and how they function. If you go,
do they usually give like they give you a PDF usually of the parts you need to solder
Correct.
on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Dope.
If you want to check out some of these pedals, he did a video recently with a girl from Dejuna. It's called "Show Me Your Junk" with Kurt Ballou, and
oh yeah,
they go through a handful of these PCB boards and the pedals associated with them, and you actually get to hear them and see what they do. There's the Brutalist Junior is the one that I have, and it's not a HM2, but it's an equally gnarly like overdrive distortion thing.
Cool. This is interesting.
Yeah, he has some super simple ones and some super involved ones, but do a boost first. That's what I've been looking at. An LPB or something like that.
Cool.
Nick, you had the Rev pedals for a minute, didn't you?
I did. I might have sold them by now, but
I think you got rid of them, yeah, if I recall.
Yeah, I liked the red. You know what? You know how it goes. Like after you sell something, you're like, I kind of regret that. But I think it was during the pandemic, and we could have used the money. So during the pandemic, as if it's over. Anyhow, I like them.
Depends on what state you live in.
Yeah, I like the purple pedal was sick.
The Tone Control podcast, they've been going through them with the head that they work in conjunction with.
Okay.
And they're actually pretty impressive that way, since you have the bass gain stage of the bigger amp, and then you're using the pedals to select which channel you want to add to it, which like kind of modular. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So if you get their little lunchbox amp, which has like an IR loader and a load box, like it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
You can take those, the green, the red, purple pedal, and put those in front or in the effects loop, depending on how you want to run them, and that gives you, the additional channels of what the bigger rev amp would be.
Nice.
It's pretty cool, and they sound great too. Some of them are like super high gain, and some of them are not, but the combination of them seem to be pretty cool. At least on that thing. And the dude that runs that podcast will do videos just demoing pedals too after they are done with the episodes.
Awesome. I'll have to follow those guys.
Yeah, I did a tour of that dude's studio a couple weeks ago. And,
oh, him. Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah. Okay, cool.
I'm going to mute myself for a second so I can adjust the mic into a position that's not killing me. So give me a second.
Do it.
I think I did it either way. Oh, whatever.
Cool.
Oh, boy. We were gonna shoot shit about records from 2021.
Yes, let's start that. Let's start going over that. And as we were kind of talking about it before we started, doesn't necessarily mean it was a record from 2021. That's right. We're in 2022 now. But just stuff we were listening to last year.
Yeah.
So
all of mine are from 2021, but I agree with you. They don't have to be.
Yeah, they don't have to be, only because I picked some that weren't.
I have some records I listened to that weren't, but I made it. My intention initially was to do a video just about those records, and I didn't get to it. So now I
anticipate. You also send me so much good music that I don't always listen to the whole album. I listen to that song and I'm like, yes, there's another good thing, but then because I am the way I am, I don't go back to it and like finish it out.
Finish it out, man.
See, that's another thing. I forgot about fucking Mutoid Man. Like I listened to a bunch of Mutoid Man last year, and that's not on my list. But yeah, I'm sure there's going to be stuff that you bring up that I also listen to because of you, which is good because it's nice to have somebody who can show you different music and you can get out of your own little fucking repetitive cycle.
My list is kind of all over the place. There's some common ground in some of it, but for the most part, it's a little bit varied, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, let's dig into it. I'm sure they're not in any sort of like actual rankings. They're just, it's a list of shit. So let's go for it.
Do you want me to start, or do you want to do it?
I mean, I can start because I don't think I have 10, but
all right, go ahead.
I know this will bring up, the first one on my list is, an album I know you listen to a bunch. It's, Distant Populations by Quicksand, which up until you showed me Quicksand, I had never heard of and was ashamed of that fact. And this album has become one of my favorite albums of all time. So much so that I just can't push myself to listen to other albums by them just yet. I'm a weirdo. I fully admit it.
They don't have a ton of albums, luckily, so you can start at the beginning and you only have to go in like 5 records. So.
Oh, cool.
Because they started in like 94 or 95 in the grunge era. So.
Oh, I just forgot another one. Oh, that might have been 2022 though.
That record is. I wrote a bunch of shit down about that record. It's on my list, so let's call it. But yeah, you've got. It's interesting because there's like all these bands that have come kind of out of that era that kind of became cult things, like Quicksand and Hum, and later on Deftones, as Road Bull is pointing out, Sergio, who is in Quicksand and was originally in Quicksand and still is the bass player in Deftones because he replaced Chi when Chi passed away, or when Chi went into a coma from a car accident, 2008. So it's been a long time ago. Sergio took over to fill in with the initial anticipation that Chi would improve in his condition, but he ended up passing away. And Sergio took over permanently. I honestly think I like Chi. I like all the records. I love the Deftones, but all the records prior to that are amazing. But I do think that Sergio's playing has added a lot to what that band has done.
There's definitely his in having listened to my wife loves Deftones a lot. I'm not the biggest fan. I won't shit on the band. I've listened to them, listened to plenty of albums with my wife, of course. And I, having then discovered Quicksand because you showed them to me, you can hear his influence on their stuff. I think it's pretty significant.
You can hear Quicksand influence and Hum and Helmet influence in Deftones even before Sergio was a part of Deftones. It's a band that was a big influence to them early on, so you can hear a lot of that stuff. I mean, without question, there's some Quicksand influence on some of the earlier Deftones stuff, and because the early Quicksand was more like post-hardcore stuff, so a lot of that did bleed over into Deftones, because Deftones unfortunately came up in the era where like new metal things, so they got associated with that.
Yeah,
they're one of probably the only band in that era that wasn't that. And kind of continued to change as time went on, whereas the other bands have kind of locked into that thing. And they're doing what brings them a paycheck. There's nothing wrong with that. But Deftones have just evolved a lot. And I think Sergio's edition is good. Let's see, I have other stuff on this record. Their live band now includes Stephen Brodsky from Cave-In and Mutoid Man. Because he's the second guitar player because the original guy left. He didn't play on the record at all, but he no. But he is a part of the record is just the drummer Sergio and the singer there, and I know all of their names.
I wonder if he'll play on the next one. That would be interesting to me.
I hope so.
That would be very, very
Cave-In's been touring again with a slightly different lineup.
You've sent me some of their stuff, right? I think so.
I have. Cave-In is amazing. Also, in early era, like bands like Quicksand and Cave-In played shows together. Kind of just a weird experimental band, and that's a whole other. I could do a whole fucking conversation on Cave-In alone, but one of the most underrated bands that are influenced all kinds of shit, and they had went from being super underground to being signed to a major label and touring as an opener for Foo Fighters for several years, and then back to being an underground thing. A lot of other bands, including Mutoid Man, which is a whole other thing. Let's see. That dude was on it. And I know like Sergio started using bass 6 and Deftones on the Gore record. And like, because most of that record is tuned to E, because Stefan plays the 8-string on that record. So most all of that record is in E, like low E. So Sergio started playing a bass 6 to keep up with that, but he brought it back into Quicksand. So
are they in the same octave then?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I like that. I like the synchronous.
Yeah, that's why there's like on stuff that's super low on the Gore record. It's pretty ballsy. Sergio does some different shit on there. But anyways, yeah, that record is fantastic. Distant Populations is the name of that record.
Yeah, the songs are. I mean, that's one of those you put the album on and you just listen to it. I can't wait to get it on vinyl. I haven't been able to find it yet, or every time I go to get it, it's sold out or whatever.
Yeah, vinyl pressing's delayed by like 18 months right now. So
yeah, that's something. Yeah, in aside, it's something that I've been doing. I like to put an album on now and listen to the whole thing, like how you used to do it. I got my whole little fucking setup and everything. I'm a dweeb, but I can't wait to be able to just throw that on. I can listen to the thing all the way through. The mix and the master is ridiculous.
Yeah, let me pull it up, because that guy that did that record is
the layering, it's a smash of a record in my opinion. It's one of the best things I've heard in a long time. So I was super, super stoked about that.
Yeah, I want to pull that up because the guy who did that record, he's done a ton of other records. Um,
I should bring some of this up just to
yeah,
show it at least.
Walter is the singer's name, and Alan is the drummer's name, by the way. But Josh Wilbur did the mixing for that record.
Oh, shit. What was I just seeing something on him?
He's done some Lamb of God stuff. I'll pull him up too.
He might have did the last Lamb of God.
I'm pretty sure he did. Lamb of God, Korn, A Day to Remember, Avenged Sevenfold, Megadeth, Papa Roach, Killer Be Killed, Tenacious D, Dillinger Escape Plan, Butcher Babies, Hatebreed, Quicksand, Moontooth, Motionless in White, Of Mice and Men, Gojira. From, there's just, a fuck ton of huge bands he's mixed.
Awesome. Yeah.
And he has a drum pack from Tune Track as well, if you're interested in his drum production.
Oh.
Road Bull, yeah, the Palms record is really cool. I wish they would do more of that. So that was the majority of the lineup of the band ISIS, minus Aaron Turner, with Chino singing from the Deftones in front of it. So, but it was weird because I'm a huge ISIS fan as well, and I expected that record to be heavy, and instead it was super mellow and like really vibey and drony, and it's a really brilliant record. I forgot about that. It's been a while, like 2012, I think that came out. And yeah, thanks for reminding me, Rob. I'm gonna go listen to that again. It's been a while.
Oh yeah. So yeah, check out this album. Like if you're into, I mean, I wouldn't even necessarily call it post. Would you call it post-hardcore, this album?
No, it's a rock record at this point. I will say that, like, if it's a practice in like just solid, simple songwriting, like there's not a lot to the songs, but they're really well crafted and just really well thought out.
Absolutely.
Some of we talked about the mix. It's incredible. There's a lot of a mixture of drum machine and then acoustic drums too. That's really cool.
Yeah, my favorite track on there, Brushed. It starts off with some electric drums. It might go through the whole track. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, just the ambience on some of the tracks and the heaviness too, for being simple songs. Just so heavy, so heavy. Definitely check this one out.
Yeah, that one is pretty amazing. Let's see.
What do you got?
I got a bunch.
Give us one.
Okay, well, I'll go with staying in the heavier realm, I suppose. There's a record called Blood Moon, which is Converge and Chelsea Wolfe doing a record as a team. I mean, it's probably the best thing to happen in music in the COVID era, in my opinion, because it's two bands that are extremely distinct, two artists that have a very particular thing they do. And if you've heard Converge and you think of Converge, you would be hard to kind of think necessarily how she would fit into it. But they did it in a way that's like a crazy balance of genres, and like there's a lot of super doomy and ambient stuff, but also combined with like the tech metal-y and grind aspects of Converge, and you would think it wouldn't make sense just because of what those bands are, but it fits perfectly. Stephen Brodsky is also on this record, and Kurt Ballou, who's also in Converge, mixed and did everything on this record. I don't know, man. It's kind of everything that I personally enjoy about contemporary heavy music, because I'm not into the traditional metal world very much. But I do like it when bands are able to make things extremely heavy in a way that's not as straightforward and predictable. Converge, I don't know if you're familiar with them, then like Ben Kohler is an incredible drummer. Nate is a really unique bass player, and Kurt's a great guitar player. And what you call it? I'm drawing a blank on the singer's name, but he's the one I know the most. Either way, great musicians all through and through. I mean, if you like Mutoid Man, it's the same drummer from Converge. So yeah, Ben
so many
Kohler.
connections, man.
Yeah, Ben Kohler was in Converge. He still is in Converge for years and years. And
does Kurt produce all their stuff?
Yes, and he did all of the Mutoid Man records. He's done a Chelsea Wolf record. He's done a ton of crazy stuff over the years. He did a Torch record. I think he's done some work on a Mastodon record at some point. But anyways, yeah, that record is amazing. I didn't really mention with Quicksand, I wrote like 2 or 3 songs from each of these records that are worth fucking with. But Katakana and Colossus are the 2 I had for Quicksand. With this record, I've got Viscera of Men and the Tongues Playing Dead. Those are two songs kind of embody what the record is as a whole. It has like all the different genre mixing and ambience, super dark and mixed genre stuff. It's really good.
Yeah, I think I remember you sending me Tongues Playing Dead, and then I think I did listen to this album in its entirety, and it is pretty spectacular. It's different sounding. I only listened to it the one time, so this is definitely something I can add to my list and go back to it, which is nice.
Yeah, it's incredibly heavy at times and incredibly mellow at times, but there's some really amazing guitar tones on that record, but a lot of it is to do with Kurt Ballou being really interested in like weird distortion pedals and even making the ones from God City. Those are his products. So he uses a lot of those on the records, and it's really I don't know how else to explain it. It's just like it's a practice in multi-genreal heavy music. But I'll let you pick another one. I've got a few more.
Let's see. So the next one is not an album that was recorded in 2021, but it was an album I discovered and got into, and I'll pull it up right here because it's an EP. It's a electronic, kind of ambient electronic. It's called Grey Unknown by Ambion and Filion, and I think I listened to this album, this EP, I don't know, 100 times easily, if not more. It's just it's got good groove. It's really chill. It has a nice consistent vibe across all the tracks. I know some people are like, it all sounds the same, and that can be a negative for an album, but to me, like how it's tied together sounds really good. And it's just one of those albums you can put on and just chill out to, which I really appreciated the last couple of years,
Yeah.
It came out in 2017. I don't know if it looks like they even had something last year. I just didn't listen to it.
You sent me that record. I gave it a couple passes through.
It's a good album. It's
pretty
nothing,
chill.
Yes, it's nothing like groundbreaking or spectacular, but it's just the vibe of it. I think the production's good, of course, and anytime you can throw on something that's chill and vibey, I really kind of appreciate. So that's one on my list that wasn't from last year, but I listened to it a bunch last year.
Yeah, it was good. I gave that a couple of spins myself when you sent it to me. I usually end up listening to stuff in the car more than anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see, what do I have? Still have a bunch. So we talked about Blood Moon. We talked about Distant Populations. We both have that. So I have Jerry Cantrell's solo record.
Oh shit, that's right.
Brighton. I mean, obvious stuff there. I mean, he's one of the most influential guitarists from the past century, pretty much. And he's in one of the biggest bands in the world. I mean, he's in Alice in Chains. writes most of the songs, if not all of them. You know, aside, I know Evan Duvall writes about us, not Evan Duvall, but William Duvall. Evan
I
Duvall is a guy
think
from Dayton.
I also think that people didn't realize how much Jerry sang on, like, when obviously when Lane
Lane,
was alive and in the band,
yeah,
like he was obviously pivotal to their sound, but Jerry is like he does so much layering and harmonizing and even like main vocal lines in Alice that I think a lot of people didn't realize it. So it's fucking there's I remember his first Degeneration Trip album. Oh,
mm.
I loved that thing, man. Loved it.
Yeah.
So I'm
Degradation Trip
ashamed
one
that
and two are both good.
I haven't listened to this. I know you sent it to me. I know you told me to. I'm just a piece of shit.
Nah, I mean, you get to it when you get to it. It's a great record. It is. It's not my favorite of his solo records, but
Mm,
it's not bad at all. It's a great record. Um, but I mean, it's a lot more of a bluesy thing and a little bit more of a classic rock vibe.
okay.
The few rocker song, like for like more hard rockish songs on the record are a little more major key than I would expect from him,
Mm,
and a little more upbeat and yeah, awesome heavy in Hawaii. Yeah, Avatar's great stuff. This record though does have a ton of guests on it and people who played on it that are like high level dudes. So you have obviously Jerry from Alice in Chains. Duff McKagan played bass on a good portion of the record.
mm,
Greg Puciato and Gil Sharon from Dillinger Escape Plan are on the record. Uh, Greg did backup vocals and some additional guitar work. Gil Sharon did some drums on a couple of the songs. Abe Laboriel, who is Paul McCartney's drummer, played on the
mm.
rest of the record.
Very cool.
Tyler Bates is a composer who was also in Marilyn Manson at one point. He did all of the string arrangement and production as well as bass guitar stuff that Duff didn't do.
Mm.
Let's see, Joe Barresi mixed it, which is part of why it sounds incredible, because Joe Barresi's a fucking madman. He's mixed, if you don't know Joe Barresi, he's mixed every huge Tool record. He's like one of the hot, the most sought after engineers in the world. Done a bunch of Chevelle records. If you look him up, I mean, he's done so much shit. Like Joe Barresi does great stuff, great records, great guitar tones across the board. I got Atone, which is the first single from the record, which is a very, again, like acoustic bluesy thing. And
Yep.
there's a song called Had to Know, which is also in a similar vein. It's a little bit more rock and roll, but still, it's a bluesier record than what I anticipated from it. And especially if you're going from like Boggy Depot, and this record is actually more similar to Boggy Depot than Degradation Trip 1 and 2, but Degradation Trip 1 and 2 are much more like down tempo and kind of brooding. This is not as much of that.
Right.
So it's a great record. It's worth checking out. I've only given it 2 full spins through. There's a few songs that really stick out. Overall, the production and the playing is incredible. And some really great guitar playing and solo stuff, and good tonal choices. I mean, it'd be hard to fuck up with the personnel that's on that record.
Absolutely.
So yeah. What else you got?
So I listen to all sorts of shit, obviously. And one of the bands that I've been listening to a lot this past year, again, this isn't going to be anything. I don't think this album came out in 2021. I think it came out in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But the band is Iration. It's kind of like they're basically like a new modern kind of reggae band, which I'm very much into thanks to my brother. Yeah, so Coastin' came out in 2020. Just a great, like first of all, the production values on these modern reggae bands is like unbelievable, and the musicianship is Same thing, unbelievable. I've seen them live before. I've seen some of the other bands that I love live, and they're all just amazing musicians. So the last two albums, they're Irish, they're self-titled, and Coast, and I listen to a bunch because again, it's those albums I can put on, can listen to them in their entirety. They sound amazing. They got good groove, and it's just chill. It just kind of like chills you out, puts you in a different headspace. And I was definitely all about that the last couple of years. So again, Iration I listened to a bunch uh, in 2021. Won't go
Awesome.
into too much more than that because I mean,
You sent me one of the records.
yeah, probably
It's
their
actually
newest one.
it sounds really good. I'm not normally not a huge reggae person, but I did listen
Sure.
to it through.
Sure.
Let it play while I was driving from Canada to the States one afternoon.
Hmm.
Uh, it's nice to just kind of zone out. It actually is kind of like a vibey thing, which I respect.
Absolutely.
You don't really have to know much about a lot of reggae stuff. You can just kind of let it happen.
Yeah, and that's how I got into it. Like I never in a million years would have expected I'd ever listen to reggae. And my brother loves it. He got into it really in a big way, and he would slowly listen to bands around us when he would come visit, and then it just like kind of clicked one day, and I'm like, oh shit, I get it. It's
Yeah,
just yeah, and then I kind of just became a legitimate fan of some of these bands over the last couple of years. So it's been nice. What do you got?
I got a bunch.
Yeah.
Let's see. I got one that's a couple of them that I've got a lot written down about because originally this was going to be a video.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I'll just go. Fuck, I don't know. I got one that's really funny, but I'll get to that in a little bit. Foo Fighters, Medicine at Midnight. That came out last year too,
Mm-hmm.
and just a great record. It's different. They released two records last year because they released that Bee Gees cover record too. It like
Which is fucking stellar, man.
it's really good and it's not shy at all. Like it's not a joke. Like they legit knocked it out of the park with a bunch of Bee Gees
Uh,
covers.
a hundred
Um,
percent.
I think that was recorded around the same time as this. But yeah, Medicine at Midnight is good. It's just a rock record. There's just a bunch of territory covered on that record. Like I like that they have the animations on there now.
I do too.
Brilliant vocal performance. There's a lot of incredible backups and stuff on the songs. Really smart melody choices. Just I don't know the drums are kind of all over the place. There's again like a mix of electronic and acoustic drums. There's some southern rock stuff on that record. A few of the songs, just like the drum recordings, are uh, major, huge on a couple of the songs. I mean, they're one of the biggest rock bands in the world, literally. So they have the money to do whatever the fuck they want.
I
Uh,
don't think Butch didn't produce this, did he?
no, I think it's the same dude that did the last record.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's just a great record. Shame was like the first single. They did that on the SNL when Dave Chappelle hosted SNL. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and Holding Poison was the other song that I chose off there. They're opposites sides of the spectrum. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean they have another thing coming out too because they're getting ready to release like a mini doc slash like horror movie. Uh,
Yeah, I saw that.
and there's supposed to be a record accompanying that too. So I'm curious. And when they posted pictures, it was all like Doom equipment, so like green amps and stuff. This is interesting. Um,
He did a very interesting thing. I forget the guy who he did it with, but he did like a song or a cover with one of his Jewish friends
yeah,
for all the nights of Hanukkah, and like what I'm getting at is like Dave is just. I mean, to me, I say this when I'm drunk. Uh, Dave to me is like our Tom Petty, like in
yeah,
regards to as far as like just a prolific songwriter, and he put this band together of all these dudes that just kill it every song, every album. They have a sound, but they do different shit, and they
yep,
do whatever they want. Like you said, like who would have thought that like one day he was just fucking around the studio and was like, doing falsetto and was like, oh shit, that kind of sounds like the Bee Gees. And then they do a Bee Gees cover album, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
It's
it's
great.
dead on.
Yeah.
Yeah, not shy at all. Yeah, man, I don't know. I got nothing. I've never have anything bad to say about him. Every record has been good in its own right. There's some I really love more than others. But I don't know. Like I'm 40, and you are as well, right?
Hmm.
I grew up when Nirvana was new, and listening to, I listened to Nevermind when it was new. And In Utero came out when I was in seventh grade or sixth grade, and I was really into them, and it was like my world there for a while. And then Kurt died, and it was whatever. It became even bigger because of his death,
Hmm.
and then the other records that like the Incesticide and Bleach and the records that a lot of people didn't know about became popular too. Um, but I will say, even with all those records and as great as they are, which at this point I can't really listen to Nevermind. And it's not for any
Same.
like emotional reason. I'm just burnt the fuck out. Uh,
Yep.
because during that era, all the way up until now, it's like one of the biggest records of all time, and it was just constantly on, even though I owned it. Now there are some songs on it that never made it to the radio that are quite good, but even those I'm burnt on. I had that shit on cassette. um,
Yep.
but In Utero still rules for me. It's like my favorite thing they ever did. But anyway,
I agree
uh,
with you there.
my thing with that is like, for every bit of notoriety and fame that Nirvana has, which a lot of it, whether you like it or not, was more so to do with Kurt having killed himself. Uh, they were
In
huge.
hindsight, yeah.
They were huge at the time. They were on top of the world. They were literally selling more records than Michael Jackson for 2 years. However, they started selling more stuff and continue to sell more stuff posthumous to his life.
Yep.
So, which is normal. It happened. Jimi Hendrix still makes millions of dollars a year, and he's been dead since the fucking 70s.
Hmm.
So, like, it's not uncommon for that shit to happen. But the reality of it is what I'm getting at, and may piss people off. Dave Grohl is an exponentially better songwriter than Kurt Cobain ever was. He's had a longer career, of course, because he's not dead, but his consecutive success, whether Kurt was alive or not, I don't think would have existed unless that band imploded. And Dave eventually made his way to the Foo Fighters, but it probably wouldn't have been the same.
Yep.
I would not turn back time to save Kurt in an effort to remove the Foo Fighters. I'd rather have the Foo Fighters exist than have Nirvana ever had existed. That's right, I said it.
I would absolutely 100% agree with you, because I think, and that's what happens when you're 41. A thought just withers into fucking the ether
Well, that's
while you're in
okay.
mid
Like my
sentence.
point is that there was a point in time where Nirvana was the be all end all for me. Like they were my favorite band of all time. I had shirts. I got in trouble for buying the offensive shirts, and like all these things. Like I would go like when there used to be um, like circus and all that stuff. They would have like memorabilia sections where you could order shirts from other countries. I was super obsessed with them. I had all the B sides on CD, and like I have a single that has like there's a song called Moist Vagina on it.
Hmm.
There's like I had like a curmudgeon. Like I had all of this shit. I was way into them. I still like they're a part of my being musically, but I would give up that ever hearing them again in exchange for hearing Foo Fighters.
Absolutely. I'd absolutely agree with you.
I don't think there's any correlation with Machine Gun Kelly and Kurt Cobain, other than him trying to be brooding and
Yeah,
tripping.
I think what he's doing is intentional,
Yeah,
where Kurt was
being himself.
genuine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't give a shit about Machine Gun Kelly. I
Me
respect
neither.
what he does, and he's
Yeah.
clearly very
I'll
successful.
I'll never shit on someone's hustle.
No, no,
Absolutely.
I mean, I've only heard a few of his songs, but it's just it
I
doesn't
can't I
appeal.
can't tolerate I can't tolerate him quite personally, but
I
honestly,
did listen to the record that he put out with the pink guitar on the cover because it was everywhere for a minute,
he is
and
banging what's her name too.
I don't know
Uh,
about that. Uh,
the girl from Transformers.
Megan Fox.
Yeah.
Well, good for him. That's very exciting. In that case, I support everything he's doing, and I think he's a brilliant artist because
Oh shit!
he wins. He's making the money, and I don't. I
That
mean, he may be bringing people to guitar, but I think it has nothing to do with Kurt Cobain. It has to do with there was a massive shift in music to get away from rock and roll. And every cycle there's a person that brings that back. I would still say that many other artists have been doing that the whole time. He's just it's in pop culture right now.
I want to preface my mini rant by saying, Heavy in Hawaii, I'm not shitting on your comment at all or your opinion, but I've seen this sentiment thrown around a lot, and it could be perhaps maybe I'm naive because I am engulfed in guitar, but I listen to, as you can, as these lists are kind of attesting, we don't just listen to metal, we don't just listen to heavy stuff, we listen to all sorts of things. I don't think guitar is like gone away at all, in my opinion.
No, it's just not in pop music as much.
Yeah, and I don't think that matters anymore. I don't think what's on pop radio matters at all, really, or what's on the popular playlists. I mean, it does for who makes the money, but I don't think it. If anything, I think there are more prolific guitar players nowadays than there's ever been. And
the internet is completely open. That I think more people are influenced by people on the internet than are even remotely influenced by any pop artist at this point. More people are paying attention to. Just for an example, like I think more people are inspired to play guitar from people like Ola, or even other musicians and other bands that have channels that are putting out guitar stuff. And here is my de facto defeat all of this Machine Gun Kelly thing. John Mayer is what brought guitar back into pop music. You're welcome.
Absolutely. And John Mayer, and I think John Mayer is. I don't think people realize how amazing he is at guitar.
He's an incredible guitar player, an incredible musician. I don't give a shit about most of what John Mayer does, but I know he's an incredibly talented musician. He's clearly very versed in his instrument. He's clearly well aware of what he's doing with his career path. He's highly successful. He's also fucked women on the Megan Fox level. So I think that, if anyone has made guitar relevant again and inspired people to pick up an instrument, my thing here is that you put in the what is that, the Sky or whatever, that guitar that he just had that come out from PRS, which they just made an SE version of it.
Yeah,
it is the most.
They did.
Yeah, it's coming out this year. It's the most popular guitar in church music. It's the most popular guitar in modern blues. It's the most popular guitar in contemporary pop, because he's massively influential.
And he knows his shit. He knows his shit like 100. Yeah, like Heavy in Hawaii. Like your comment wasn't really having to do anything with Machine Gun Kelly. It was more like I've seen that sentiment, like guitar. Certain people bringing guitar back, or has it gone, or do people get like? My son, I never pushed an instrument on him. He's very much into guitar. A bunch of his friends are into guitar and bass, and if that were the case, I don't know that I'd know of like 5 kids in their 20s that are into guitar.
No.
They're talking about, like, I was just at the store with him about setting up a little recording area so they can record their stuff. My son is going to school for production. He wants to record them, and they're just going to start fucking recording. I think it's very much in the zeitgeist. I think that, I think what happens is some, like, certain headlines are clickbaity-ish, and then they get propagated around the internet, and then it gets stuck in our collective minds.
Sure.
But I think even in pop, there's, like, one of the people on my list is Miley Cyrus. She didn't have an album come out last year, but the year before. And there's all sorts of great guitar on those albums, And who's any more pop right now than anyone else than Miley, at least last year or the year before. You know what I mean?
Well, in the guitar world, with pop artists and being highly influential, Saint Vincent is a virtuoso,
Oh, absolutely.
and she's literally on top of the fucking world with pop releases and very experimental pop releases, but she's still doing festivals and arenas all over the world.
Hmm.
So, and she's an incredible musician. So I
Absolutely.
think that if you take someone that's like that, and you have all these other tiers of it, you have things like Machine Gun Kelly, you have Miley Cyrus's, which Miley Cyrus is an incredible singer, whether you like her or not. But you have all this stuff, and then people like John Mayer and shit. They're very much in pop culture. They're very much engulfed, and they're incestuous as fuck. All those people work with the same people. And if you really want to talk about what's happening in the younger culture with guitar, you got bands like Snarky Puppy, Wolfpack. They sold out Madison Square Garden, and they're from YouTube. Like,
Hmm.
and guys like Corey Wong and all the guys associated with that band, they're huge right now. And what's I think guitar is extremely valid. We're getting way off of the top record topic, but you sent us on a tangent there, Heavy in Hawaii.
Yeah, it's all good. I think it's this kind of thing is worth talking about, and I think like there's a whole conversation to be had about Taylor too, because while she isn't predominantly playing guitar, well, I think
She
she's
does play guitar. She's not the greatest guitar player, but she still plays guitar.
but
She did
almost all her shit is written with an acoustic guitar. She
right.
writes almost all of her own music, if not all of her own music. I know she's got co-writers, but she is an amazing songwriter, and she's outspoken about the rights of artists.
Yeah.
And the thing that she's doing right now to fuck over the people that are trying to fuck her over is to me like next level baller shit. You
I
know?
respect the fuck out of her, just ability to be like, yo, if you like, if I can't make money from this version of this record, well, I'm just going to completely re-record this record that was a massive hit and release it again.
And you know what? All her fans are gonna go to that.
They did,
Yeah,
they are good
it's
for her.
fucking amazing. Yeah, absolutely. I love her attitude. I love her game when it comes to that. Like
Yeah,
I'm not very familiar with the music at all, but I'm very
no.
aware of what she does and how she's outspoken about artists' rights and how streaming fucks over a lot of artists and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
yes, it could be argued easy for someone like her to say any of that, but she passed up. What is she? She passed up something for a long time.
Here's the thing with that, and I think that it doesn't matter until you're at her level, because the amount of money you're grossing from, even let's say you have 10,000 plays a day, is nothing. But if you're someone
Yep.
like her who's getting millions of plays, then that money and those plays are real. And the problem is, and I know it just because I've been privy to some of these conversations from a legal context, how record labels are writing it is fucked. The labels, especially when you're at that level, even mid tier, if you're like in a band that's been successful at a certain point in your career or had a gold or platinum record in your history, those records still get spins. The record label sees those streams as individual spins, like what used to be on the radio, and they get paid by Spotify just like if it was on the radio. But because there is no monetization rule or law associated with streaming and streaming rights, they then get the pennies and the roll off. And after every, like a trickle
Is
down
that
economic,
true?
absolutely it is. I won't explain why. I can explain it to you off the thing here, but yes.
So that's fucking interesting. Like,
So there's a company called Artist Rights that is actively gathering bands and artists that have been and are in this position, basically because Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift, and a few other people have won lawsuits associated with their rights and gotten paid a bit. The problem is when they got paid, their label got paid, then they got the thing. But if you look at the amount of money that they should have gotten if you're looking at it from the perspective of radio plays, and that's how the labels are monetizing it, but that's not how the artist is paid. So if you look at it from the trickle down aspect, they're getting pennies on the dollar, which was always a thing. Even if you sold CDs, if the record sold for $15, you got like $1.20.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still next to nothing. But if you're selling millions of units, that's a lot of money. It's still not what you should be owed. But they just find ways to like, well, we have to pay this guy, we have to pay this guy, we have to pay this guy, we have to pay this guy. And also this other person was there in the room, and then the producer needs paid, and then the producer's assistant needs paid, and then the person who handled PR needs paid, and then at the very bottom, the band gets a portion or the artist gets a portion. What should happen is the band gets paid, and then all those people get fucking paid.
Correct.
I like that I've become my cartoon where I'm just. The point is that if you actually research what's going on with that, if you're someone who actually stands to make a lot of money from the plays, people like you and I aren't getting that. Like, we're never going to have that thing. I mean, it'd be wonderful if we did, but like, we're not getting the type of plays that it's even worthy of arguing about whether it's right or not.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. It's always annoying to me when I see people that are like just entering into that world, and they're like, well, I'm not going to use Spotify because like, you're fucking yourself, because people use Spotify and they use Apple Music, and that's how you're going to get to people, and you're not making money as it is. So stop talking about how much money they're taking from you. You're not taking shit from you. If
Right.
10 people stream your song tomorrow, you didn't make even a point of a percentage. Like,
correct.
So stop it. But the whole thing is, if you're someone who is making money and feasibly making a career in music, and you're getting millions or thousands and thousands of plays every day, you are losing money. But you're losing money. The label isn't losing money. Spotify isn't losing money. The PR people aren't losing money. The artist is. So neither here nor there. That's a whole other conversation. But
yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting, and it'd be an interesting topic to dive into.
The way it breaks down is very sad. It's not new. I mean, the music industry has always been corrupt.
Correct.
But yeah, if you really analyze it, at a more deep level, or have a personal experience with it, which I am privy to one currently, there are some pretty shady things going on there, and those industries can be very, very fickle, and I don't know. It's not different when you're at that level. There's a lot of hands in the pot, and that's the problem.
Yep.
And so people like Taylor Swift that decide, I'm taking your hands the fuck out of the pot and I'm going to do what I want. That's when it becomes a problem, or for those companies. But that's also why there's not a lot of major record labels left. You have big artists, and even like Jack White, he completely owns and does all his own shit. Why would he give it to someone else?
Correct. Yeah.
Nobody's going to buy those records because they want to make sure Warner Brothers gets their cut.
Well, that's the thing. The record industry is doing what they have to do to
stay afloat
in the interest of self-preservation. And,
sure.
Given the way the world is now online, a record company doesn't serve the purpose it used to, at least in the format that it was. Now,
sure.
What would be nice is if they what's the word? Adapted to the way the industry is, but they didn't, and that's why they're fledgling at this point. And
the thing is they still make it where they make the most money, and if you're signing to a bigger label, like a real big one, like Warner or Sony or something, or any of the top tier labels, like where you're Britney Spears's and such of the world would get a record contract, they're not. They know where the money's going to be made. Those deals are almost purely 360 deals. So whereas beforehand, how an artist made money touring was from selling merch and tickets, now the labels take a cut of that because they're not making any fucking money, and they don't want the band to make money. So they give them tour assistance in lieu of taking a cut of their merchandising, and they decide who goes out on tour with the band to sell merch so that they can keep track of it. It's a weird, tricky thing, and it's if you're drowning and someone, a whole ship of people's drowning, someone hands you one fucking lifeboat, you got a few people that are going to save something, and then the rest of us are going to drown, and that's kind of how it is. Anyways, we can get back into records if you want.
Yeah, let's do that. But this is an interesting topic that I think we could talk all night about.
Yeah, I'm sure it would get boring.
So you pick that Foo Fighters album. I guess I'll pick the next one on my list, which is probably no surprise to a lot of metalheads, and that is Your Mom. Just kidding. It's Gojira.
Nice to meet you as well, Heavy in Hawaii. Yeah, no problem.
Right on, man. Cool.
So
Yeah,
Gojira.
so Gojira. They're kind of just killing it the last couple of years, right? They're getting bigger and bigger. I think a lot of people kind of throw around them and the word Metallica a lot. I think maybe just on maybe trajectory and scope and scale of their following nowadays. But this is a good album. You and I talked about this, some weird mix things on it here and there.
Yeah.
And to the uninitiated, people might think like, oh, it's just another Gojira song. And they have a sound. They have almost a formula to their stuff, but I think it's such a pleasing and a pleasant formula as far as having music goes. My wife's also a huge fan of them. We've seen them now multiple times. It's a solid album. It's not the greatest album in the world, but it's fucking Gojira, and they kind of don't disappoint.
No. My take with them is I think the reason they've taken off is because in metal is very static, like traditional metal and modern metal is super similar and repetitive. And I think they're one of the few bands that was able to carve an identity by doing things that are traditional metal, but in a unique way. Because there's elements of all the bands before them that were huge in that band. I mean, there's portions of them that have like the squeals and pinch harmonic stuff and the whammy stuff. That's all very much in the Dimebag world.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of the Metallica vibe. There's some Slayer aspects, of course, Lamb of God type influences. And then I think you take into consideration that the drummer is doing things that other drummers don't do in general in heavy music. And I think that's the thing that sets them apart is they sound like everything else, but they don't at the same time.
Yeah.
And
agreed.
I don't know if it's because they're French or whatever the situation is. But I also think that it helped that, early on when you started seeing other bands that people respected and, Lamb of God at one point was in the position that Gojira is as being like the next big thing to take over since these other bands were kind of either literally dying or going away. And it was there was a movement away from the top tier metal bands of the era, which, you kind of think about it in terms of like in the early 2000s, as the new metal thing was going away and that new thing of like American metal and Swedish metal and even like the combination of the American like hardcore and power metal thing coming out at that time, there was only a few bands that withstood the test of time there, and the other bands that were still on the radio and considered heavy at the time were like basically Disturbed. So yeah, when you have like that and then a band, even bands like Slipknot, if you have a band like Slipknot or Gojira or Lamb of God that follows that, like those other bands can't do that. Like they couldn't do it if they fucking wanted to.
Correct.
And I think that that's been the thing, but also Gojira has been consistently putting out something that's interesting and experimental within a genre that's kind of stale.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing that makes them continue to be popular. Even I talked to my wife about that. I mean, she was in that world. She went from being a part of the new metal era and being very popular there, and then being a part of the American metal revival that happened about 5 or 6 years after that, because they switched gears too to become that kind of band as well. I think it was not an intentional thing as much as it was just like, we don't want to be doing what was happening there forever and get locked into that. So we're gonna evolve.
Yep.
And talking to her, she's like, Gojira is probably one of the only bands that was truly doing something original coming out of that era. Like,
yeah,
they were doing something their own way, and it took them a long time to take off. Like, because I remember it was like one of those things where you talk to like people that were like metalhead dudes who were like, would have that like the first record and the one with the whale on it, and like be like, oh, this band is fucking incredible, and they are, but they just weren't there yet. And now they're there. They're finally where where they should be. And I think they're one of those bands though that just like the Metallicas and such of the world, and even Lamb of God, a lot of people give up on them after certain records because they become a little more commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And become successful. Even I would say Gojira hasn't become that different, other than the singing's changed a tiny bit.
Yes,
but I don't feel like they got lighter or more like butt rocky or anything like that. Whereas you can't say that for like Metallica and
agreed.
other bands. So
Yep.
I don't know. They're a great band. They do interesting things and continue to evolve that genre. And a lot of the things that are coming as posthumous to that are also more interesting because of them. And I think people are less afraid to try different shit and heavy music. Some buddies of mine are on tour with them as techs, and for them and Alien Weaponry. And Alien Weaponry is not my jam, but they're kind of weird because they're almost a throwback to the new metal era. But they are opening for Gojira. But it's wild to see, like, those guys will post pictures like loading shit in and stuff, and there's like people waiting to see those bands, where there's a period of time where I would be surprised to see a line of people to see those bands. So, anyway, yeah, they're an amazing band. That record has some weird mixing stuff going on, but otherwise it's a really great record.
Yep.
And as Synth Chris said, they do have a cool plug-in now.
That's a whole nother goddamn can of worms right there.
Yeah, we don't need to get into that.
What do you got next, buddy?
Oh boy. Well, we're going heavier or lighter, you tell me.
Let's go lighter. Let's shake it up a bit.
Okay, so I have Ruth Rundle record, Engine of Hell. If you are familiar with Ruth Rundle, she is, most of her stuff I wouldn't categorize as heavy, but it's definitely been experimental. She's done some records that are almost purely noise stuff early on.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of really ambient acoustic stuff. And then some full band stuff. She was in a band called Red Sparrow that was like a post-rock kind of shoegazy thing in the early 2000s, like in an era when that was not cool. And they were a big deal for a while in like the underground community, and like those bands, and like Godspeed Your Black Emperor and all, like that type of music was big in the indie world. And she was in one of those bands. And then she was in a band called Marriages for 2 records. And those records were really incredible. So she just has a solo career since then. Signed to Sargent House along with Mutoid Man and Chelsea Wolfe. Similar to Chelsea Wolfe, they've done a single together during the pandemic. But it's just really experimental guitar playing, and a lot of like on the previous records was a lot of like ambient guitar stuff and really clever layering and chord usage. She plays in some strange open tunings and plays baritone at times, and it's very cool. This record, however, is not that at all. It is definitely moody and whatnot and kind of ambient, but it's a lot of it's just her and a piano, which was very different because she's never done that on a record before.
Yeah.
And aside from that, I mean, there's some stuff that's still just her and an acoustic, but it doesn't have a ton of production on it. It's just, it sounds like a lot of it was done with maybe 2 or 3 mics total. And there's not, I don't recall drums on the record at all. There's some like shaker and stuff, but like it's a pretty different record for today's standards of, rock records or whatever you want to call it. But it's just really intimate, and I imagine it's because she lived in LA. She moved to Kentucky. She married a guy who was in another band similar to this band JJL that used to be the guys from Young Widows, which is also another like experimental shoegazy weird band. I don't know how else to explain that. She married him and moved to Louisville, and during COVID, this is what she did. Basically, she wrote a record and recorded it, privately. And it sounds like it. It sounds like somebody sitting in a room recording a record, and it's very emotional and dark and seems very personal. It's a great record. It's weird and it's nice. I don't know. I think what stuck out about it, it's nice to hear something that was that different and bare and like raw in
Yeah.
comparison to all of the crazy production that goes on with other records.
Yeah.
And to where you can hear like the floor creak and shit like that. Like, I don't know, there's something cool about just legit like being about it, you know? Like, I
Yeah.
was gonna set up a couple of mics and a piano and an acoustic guitar and write a record, and it's not gonna be like a folk record. It's just some weird, broody, weird shit. It's a great record. It's weird. It's worth checking out. And if she has other records that are great, I've been listening to Some Heavy Ocean, which is one of her other records, a lot. I've had it for many years now, but it's great. I want to call it Dark Horse, I think is the other one. It's really good. Just different. And if you look at like NPR has some Tiny Desk stuff with her, and then the Tiny Desk out there or whatever, ones where they do them not in the building.
Mm.
There's a few of those with the full band, and there's some rig rundowns and stuff with her on Premier Guitar. If you're interested in weird gear choices and loopers and using baritones in a very weird way, she's an interesting person to research.
Dope. Awesome. Yeah, this is another artist you sent me that I haven't spent enough time digging into, but
yeah, my dude Chris Common, who's a Dayton guy, I don't know him too well. I kind of met him over the internet once he was no longer in Dayton. He works for Sargent House and has produced some records for Omar from Mars Volta and whatnot. He used to be run a studio in Dayton that my friend Sean took over later. And he did a lot of the production on her earlier records and played drums with her touring when she was in a band, and played drums on the Some Heavy Ocean record with her and produced and recorded that whole thing. So it's interesting because there's a bit of stuff that's kind of close to where I'm from, and even like using some of the we were in a studio called Encore now that's in a different building, but there used to be another building called Encore Recording that was at one time called the Danger Room Recording. And that was his studio and his setup and everything. So it's interesting because I've recorded a record in those same places, and that's how I got to chat with him online, because I was like, I knew it was his place, and I started tagging him and stuff, and then kind of started chit chatting back and forth about gear and that we were in his room and whatnot, which is kind of interesting. It's like dude's career took off to a point where he was able to move to LA and start doing these bigger records. But it's interesting. Nice. It's like his footsteps are kind of the same path. It's interesting.
Nice, man.
Yeah. And then Emma is married to the dude from J Jail. My friend John Wood was in a band called Old Baby with J Jail, and he quit with that lineup. He quit playing with them, and then they became J Jail. It's a weird thing. They're all very incestuous.
Yeah, a lot of connections. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm the least active person, so I know a lot of people. I'm not doing shit.
Sooner than later, buddy. It's gonna happen. Okay. Yeah, I'm excited because I'm jotting down a lot of these bands that I've meant to listen to. It's a nice reminder, so I get to hopefully fucking pull up some of these soon so I can listen to them. All right, so let me see here. What else do I have? Where'd my shit go? Pull this up here. Come on. Would help if I spelled properly. So the next thing I listened to last year is going to be this album, the English band Architects, and it's For Those Who Wish to Exist. You know, it's not the greatest album in the world, as far as I think a lot of Architect fans will profess, but I think it's a super solid album they're very heavy, but they also kind of like lean a little more pop. And what I mean by that is just like song structure, simplicity, hooks, stuff like that. It's a very catchy album. It's still heavy. Um, all the guys in this, I think, Josh Middleton, you know, who's in the band Solisis, is just a sick guitar player, and they're doing some interesting things. I think on some of these tracks, they were tuned to standard E, but they used like a pitch pedal to like tune down an octave. Um, and just I don't know. There's some cool production stuff. There's a lot of like uh, uh, symphonic and electronic mixed in with it. It's a good album. Some people can't stand this band. I like them. I think it's a good album, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've given this one a listen. I've given one of their other older records a listen to. The one with the weird uh, kaleidoscope looking thing there on the bottom.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, they're good. There's weird because like there's a lot of pop elements in that band, but I don't know. I find it interesting. There's a lot of cool guitar playing and kind of clever tuning choices and things like that. I don't know. There's things that I dig about the band.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Good
know.
album.
Yeah, the songs are fairly anthemic too. I mean, there's a reason they're very popular.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think there are people who I think there. So like, if you go back to like, you know, all our gods have abandoned us. They were more on. I wouldn't say they were a gent band straight up, but they had a lot of like industrial kind of influences or a sound to it. They had a certain sound that was very familiar on some of their earlier albums. It had that very. If they would have kept that way, they would have. I think with another band that just got lost in this whole like modern gent kind of wave of nameless bands. You know what I mean?
A lot of bands got sucked into that.
But they started growing in a way where they started implementing different stuff. And I know they went through some lineup changes because there was a death in the band and stuff like that. But I think the band is better, and they're not afraid to try shit, which I appreciate. So I'm not saying that I think they're hugely popular, but amongst hardcore Architect fans, you know, I've seen some naysaying, but you know, that's how it goes.
I think people that like heavy music sometimes get a little pissy when it becomes more in like the hook oriented world.
Yeah, I don't totally. I guess I was that way at some point too, right? I'm sure we all were. It's like
I appreciate that part of them because they're bridging a gap where it actually opens them up to being more widely accessible and successful. I know people I don't really hear the term thrown around too much, but a lot of people talk about being. When I was younger, you'd hear people say like, that person sold out." I don't think anyone's sold out. Like, you're not paying their bills. Shut up. But
yeah,
the other part of it is like maybe they just made a conscious effort to do something that was interested in them, or they wanted to be heard by more people. And if you're a musician, and especially if you're like someone who's a professional musician, your livelihood is having a bunch of people purchase your music.
yeah.
So wouldn't you want to be in front of as many people as possible? I mean, people got pissed at Metallica when they put out the Black Album. It's one of the most successful records in history for a reason. It's accessible. Yeah. And why, if you can combine the things that are popular in modern metal music, which is the djent movement stuff and the things kind of that have come out of that, with pop sensibility, now you have both of those audiences.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And metal music in general is got a lot of elitists, but I would argue that metal music has the most elitists.
Absolutely, a lot of gatekeepers. Yep, a lot of elitists, a lot of opinionated guys who think a band should do what they did 2 albums ago and shit like that.
Right, and I have my own opinions. Clearly, we had the whole Machine Gun Kelly debacle, but there's like, I don't know. I just look at it like, what the fuck do you have to say about someone else trying to evolve their career? And if you don't like it, you don't like it. But a lot of those types of picking on people and talking shit. It comes from a place of their own lack of success and jealousy,
Yeah.
and people are very precious about certain things, like music in particular. People don't. I had this conversation with my wife the other day. Like, there was a period in my life, especially when I was in high school, that if I told someone that I liked a band, they would be pissed that I like them, because that meant
Yeah,
that
I remember that too. There's another person that knows of them. Yeah, I was
these
just
two things that we both actually have in common, that we have nothing else in common. But instead of using it as a bridging tool, we're like, you can't like the same thing I do. Fuck you. That's mine.
yeah,
Well, nothing is yours. And
exactly. I think you hit it on the head, and I think that's what happens is like a band does something different, right?
yeah, yes,
And it has some more popular sensibilities because they want to, I don't know, continue their music career, and then the guys who know of that band before are like, well, you only got into them on, you know, their last album. It's like, yeah, sorry.
well, here's the thing with that. And I heard somebody say it, and I want to say it was a podcast a year or two ago, and it cracked me up. But to someone, the first record that they ever heard by Metallica was Saint Anger. And to them, that is the first record. So they don't give a shit about Kill 'Em All. They don't give a shit about the Black Album. Don't care about any of them. To them, their Kill 'Em All or their Black Album is Saint Anger, even though it's not the best record, even though even it's considered a failure. It still sold millions of copies and went platinum multiple times. So it definitely wasn't a failure. It's just a weird record. But to someone that finds a band new, the thing that they may get into about them, maybe the thing you dislike anyway. But if you're a musician, that's kind of what you want anyway. Like, I don't know,
Yep.
there's Kiss records that are super weird and terrible, like The Elder. It's arguably one of the worst records they ever did. But there are people that like that album and don't like anything else they did. And that's an example, but like, I can't say I give a shit about that record, but uh I don't know. They put out a grunge record too. Somebody probably found that and was like, I guess this is what Kiss sounds like, even though it sounds like the Melvins.
Hmm.
For everybody that finds anything new, it's new to them. And I think it was there's a musician, Wynton Marsalis, who's a jazz musician. He's an incredibly talented guy. He basically said that you don't know something is good until it's not new anymore. So,
Correct.
like, yeah,
Yep. I was going to say, give it 2 years, and people come around to it. I know I've done it. And, we have this as humans with this real disingenuous kind of way about us where it's like we have a hard time saying like, or realizing my wife is so very much about this, like her evolution of listening to stuff, us introducing music to each other. And I got into Periphery really hard, really quick. I loved them on their first album with the lineup that they have.
Casey or
And
whatever,
yeah,
the
oh
original
fuck,
one. I used to listen to him when he was
no,
Bulb on MySpace, and then he became Periphery, and it was weird to me because it was all the same songs on that first record that were Bulb songs.
yeah. So I got into Periphery on, I guess, P2 then, I guess.
Okay.
But nonetheless, my wife at first couldn't handle Spencer's vocals at all, and I know that's a point of contention for a lot of people who hear Periphery. She couldn't handle it. She thought they sounded like he sounded like one of those sort of pop punky bands from the late '90s, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
She had a very specific band she would reference, and I don't remember it off the top of my head. But now, of like years of listening to them, it's probably her favorite band. One of her favorite bands of all time, and it's just like I always have these open conversations. She always thinks I'm poking at her, but it's like because I try to investigate like that attitude you have. Like you hear something right away, and you latch onto what you don't like about it. But I've become, probably because I'm a musician, somebody who looks for those things that I like about it, first and foremost. And I'm much more dismissive of the stuff I don't like now,
Right.
I guess, is what I'm getting at.
I think that I'm seeing like AJ's topic here. I don't, and to each your own. I don't have a problem with formulaic music because all music is formulaic. Um, There's nothing that isn't derivative of another piece of music. There's nothing that isn't derivative of another structure to a song. It's impossible to do something that isn't formulaic. If you actually examine any music, you'll find patterns and things that repeat. And the same can be said with any form of art. If you look through it enough, you'll see through lines that all connect and make every bit of it seem like it's formula.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If the song is good, and that's my take on it, you can think however you want. I got no beef in it. I understand what you're saying. There are bands that at certain points I was bummed that they just kept doing their thing, but maybe that's not the wrong thing for those bands. I mean, AC/DC is one of the most successful bands in history. Still has one of the top 3 selling records in the world.
Yeah.
They haven't changed ever between records.
Right.
And they still put out records occasionally, and they haven't changed a bit. And it's never been a problem for them, and it didn't have to be. But in the same token, I think the other side of that, and where I'm with you, and it'll lead me to the next record I want to talk about anyhow, is that there are also bands that change almost every record or every 2 or 3 records so dramatically that they lose a new fan base, and then they gain a new fan base.
Yep.
And I respect the shit out of that too, because they have to do things to be excited about. I think the difference is if you're a musician, you can either be okay with it. And I think if you're someone like, I don't know, the Tom Petty's of the world or even the AC/DC's of the world, it's different to play the same song over and over again when your entire catalog is hits and everyone loves them.
Mm-hmm.
When you can't really do any wrong. I mean, when Tom Petty had like 30 hits total between his solo career and the Heartbreakers, and not to mention songs he wrote for other people. Well, what's wrong with that? Like, I don't know. You can play in front of a crowd who knows every word to every fucking song. Who cares? It would be a lot easier to tolerate doing something formula if everyone enjoys it. I think that's, people get a little jaded with those things, and it doesn't really matter that much. It never really did. There's a reason that bands are successful the way they are, but at the same time, there are bands that are successful because they change and because they evolve. I can respect the side of it where you have to be loyal to whatever it is that you're trying to create, and you're willing to lose fans and accept that the people that are really with you are with you, and the people that aren't, well, they stopped listening a few records ago, and that's fine, but there'll be a new audience. And getting back to our being 40 thing, there are bands that I started listening to when I was in my teens that I still listen to that have evolved many times over the years.
Yeah.
But when I go see them now, it's a different audience. And some of the same people, it's people that are like my age that have kids that are like in their 20s and shit now. But like, I know Clutch being one of those bands. I started listening to them when I was 13.
Yeah. Clutch is a very good example.
They've changed tons of times. They started out as almost like a hardcore band, if you listen to like Passive Restraints and all that stuff. And then they, over the years became more and more their own thing and kind of became a little bit tongue-in-cheek and almost Primus-esque in some ways for a while, which I kind of dig that too. And then, where they're at now, they're basically the modern representation of rock and roll. Like, they're the closest thing, and I know people get mad at me when I say this, but they're the closest thing to a Zeppelin that this generation will ever get, and that they have an incredible drummer. Yeah, the songs are silly. I don't think Neil Fallon is anything like Robert Plant. I'm not saying to compare them. I'm saying the concept is similar. They're a rock and roll band that is basic rock and roll, and they're good at it.
100%. Like, yeah, they're Clutch, I think, is another one of those bands that we could have a discussion about. There's just like so many layers to what I love about them and what's changed about them. And, it's funny that you said, like, I remember what album I got into Clutch is very different than what they do now. And I love what they do now still. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. There's a point that I wanted to glom onto before you bring up your next album, and I'm really trying hard to remember what it was. Forget it.
That's okay. AJ, I completely agree with you. Slipknot did grow. They also had some stinkers. And that's fine. Yeah, I know Mike as well.
I remember what I was going to say. AJ's interesting con is down there. we look at this from the perspective of a fan, right? Like, they come up with this thing, and we assume they're trying to do this thing. When Stephen, you and I know, as people who write music and want people to hear our music.
That's not to say that because Synth Chris writes music, I'm sure AJ probably plays guitar. So don't take it as we're saying you're not included.
Absolutely. That's what I mean is like I'm very familiar with Steven's background and perspective. Like I know for a fact we're two musicians. I know Synth Chris is also, and AJ, yeah, like Steven said. But the point I'm getting at is like these bands, I would say more often than not, are just writing what they want to write.
Yeah.
And we are putting this whole level of commentary on it. And they're just like, we just wrote this fucking album, and this is what we wanted to write at this time in the history of the band.
Yeah.
And we don't give a shit. Like, even like, again, I'm openly a huge fan of Periphery, and they've said like, we kind of don't care what the fans think or want to hear. We write the music we want to hear. We write the music that we love to write. And if it does good and people latch onto it, then that's even better. Obviously that's what you want, but I think when you come from a place like, you just got to write the music you want to write because this is what you love. It might be a pop album. It might be, like Clutch has some straight up like Southern rock shit, and they have some like hardcore stuff to this day. Like there's a hardcore album on there or song on there once in a while. It's like the way they just write what they want to fucking write, I think is what makes a good band. And you're not going to love it all.
Record. They put out a straight up blues record from Beale Street to Oblivion is a blues record, and it's one of their great records, like one of the better records in their catalog.
Yeah, I love that album.
Anyway, the point is that artists tend to try to please themselves. Now there are artists that intentionally try to placate to an audience. I don't really bat any eyes at that either. I think that they're just trying to keep their bread and butter going, and I respect the shit out of that too. And it's hard for someone who's in my position or your position, and I don't know about anyone else in the comments, but none of us are making a living full-time as a touring musician or are filling up arenas or even theaters or small venues regularly enough to make an assumption about what someone else does with their creativity.
Yeah, there was a time where I wasn't so quick to be like, fuck those guys that are trying to just glom off of this moment or whatever, a wave of a particular
we all have opinions like that. I still have them, but the reality of it is, if I examine it, I'm usually being a dickhead.
Absolutely, that's what I was getting at. Like, now I'm far more able to kind of catch myself in that. Like, no. Like, they want to make music. They hit a high spot when this thing was popular. I understand them wanting to ride it. I understand them.
Absolutely.
Because it's going to perpetuate their ability to do it more. And then they might come back and do something completely different. And we'll be glad that they never left, It's plus you can, like, your relationship with the band is very much like people. It's an orbit and it's an ellipse, It's not a perfect circle. Sometimes you're further away and sometimes the orbit is closer,
Well, you have to try things and make attempts at things that are pleasing to you, and sometimes critical reception, or not critical, but like, I guess the reception of things artistically, unfortunately, can have an effect on. I'm getting there, AJ. I'm literally the next thing I'm talking about. I think that it can have an effect on what bands do or creative individuals do because of the reception that it receives. And I've had that happen too. I even got to a point where I hated it because I'm not even very, I'm not successful at all. But like, my band put out 2 records back to back that were like one record that was very stripped down and almost strictly doom, where we had done mostly post metal stuff with some doom elements. Then we did a record that was almost strictly doom. It did really well in that niche and like got a lot of praise from those communities, and it got us on some festivals and stuff. So then we intentionally followed it up with a record that was harder in that direction. And then a lot of chaos happened. And then looking back at it, it's not that great. Like it it feels disingenuous to me listening to it, because it feels like I saw like, oh, people like this thing in this little niche, and then I just did what they wanted me to do. And I know that's not really what happened to me. I enjoyed writing the songs, and we played them and toured on them for 3 years, and like they're great, but it definitely I'm saying this not to say like, look at me. I'm saying like I can understand it from a perspective of, I think sometimes you get an idea in your head that this is what the people that are paying attention to you are starting to like, and
Yeah.
in an effort to ride out that momentum, you start doing what those people liked the last time, and it's hard to, you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice usually, and if you do, it's not going to be because it was the same thing.
Yep.
It's going to be because you did something else that took off in a different way.
Yeah.
So that leads me to my next record, because I still have 3 of them.
Yep.
So my next record, AJ, as you mentioned, is Thrice, Horizons East. I'll just kind of read what I wrote here, because this was originally supposed to be a separate thing. It's hard for me to talk about the record without mentioning how amazing Dustin Kinsru's voice is, and his vocal performances on this record. It's better with every record. So as he gets older, because he's a little older than you and I, Nick, at this point.
Yeah.
If you think in terms of where Thrice started in almost pop punk world, and then Artist in the Ambulance was like post-hardcore, and then from there to Visu, which was the first record by Thrice I ever heard. I had not, other than this song that was like the Artist in the Ambulance, or whatever the song that was, like Illusion of Safety. Right? I don't know. I don't like that era of Thrice. I still don't.
Yeah.
But when I heard them the first time, it was on the radio with that. When I actually saw a record of theirs and got wind of it, is when there used to be Much Music. Do you remember that? Like, it was like
Yes.
another version of MTV.
Yep.
I think it may have been the Canadian MTV. But they were interviewing the guys from the Deftones in that time frame, and they were talking about what they were listening to. And one of them mentioned the record Visu. And I was like, well, if they're digging that, I'll check it out. And I bought it. Visu is amazing, and it is such an experimental thing, and it had all these elements of like post metal, and just really, like, it's a brilliant record. It's like, it's weird because to think about it, it's kind of a rock opera type of thing, but it's not really. It doesn't have a theme. It just has that vibe. Like, all the songs are kind of a ride. And then, like, I heard The Earth Will Shake, which was the first song I heard on that record, and I still one of my favorite songs by them. But it's everything that I like about experimental music. Like, it's got acoustic elements, and there's like chain gang recordings in that, and fucking super heavy, like super heavy stuff. There's screaming, there's beautiful singing. It's a great thing. Either way, as time went on, the band kind of continued to evolve and get further and further away from where they started.
Mm-hmm.
And like, anyways, this record is no different. Like, every record they've done is an evolution. I wasn't a huge fan of the last one, Palms.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was bad. It was just a little bit meh in comparison to some of their other material. But the thing that always excites me is when, after they did Visu, they did this thing called the Alchemy Index, where they put out 4 EPs that were all different elements. So like earth, air, fire, water. Those releases were all done on GarageBand and Logic. And it's literally what got me to go buy a laptop again and start recording myself again, and start recording my own bands and stuff, because the Alchemy Index, when I read, because their website used to tell you what they were doing on that record. It doesn't, it's not there anymore, but they used to have the gear index for that record, and they told you like exactly what they did as they were recording it, how they mic'd things, and it was done.
I remember that, man. I remember that.
It was done in Timpe's house, and then like they buried a mic in the backyard for one of the songs to like stomp on the ground. It's just very weird. Interesting stuff, and it was just weird because it was really immersive, because I'm a gearhead and I love the records, and the fact that there were basically 4 bands on that release, because the the Water record is almost purely digital, and the Fire record is very aggressive and lots of distortion and screaming, and just it was really brilliant how they did that, and to discover that they were doing it all in GarageBand was super inspiring to me, and it made me sell a bunch of audio equipment I had that I wasn't using anymore and go buy a laptop and start recording in GarageBand. So that record arguably got me into recording music and playing a lot more seriously. But they've put out a bunch of records in between here and there. They broke up for a while. I got to open for them once in Wisconsin at the Rave, and that was a big deal to me on their farewell tour before they got back together. And that was a whole, it was them and Animals as leaders, and Oh Brother, who's also an amazing band. But they put out a record this year too, but I forgot to put it on my list. Point being is the records that they end up doing on their own, like the Alchemy Index and Beggars, those were basically home recordings. Those records end up being the most interesting and passionate records, in my opinion. Like, they really do things that are different on those records. Like, the other records in between are great too. Like, I absolutely love all of them, but like, and I'm trying to think what was the one. There was one right before that. It doesn't matter. The one we're talking about now is this one. Anyway, they're all amazing. I could do a whole fucking week's worth of shit talking about them, but this record was a return to recording at home and self-producing and experimenting and just doing different things. And the record shows that, like, it's all over the place with tones and, recording approaches and drum sounds and things of that nature. It's just them being at home recording a record as a team, and I think that's cool because it's just a band hanging out in a garage writing a record, and it's a studio. I mean, it's not a garage anymore, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The other thing that was cool is that aside from just the songs being incredibly well constructed, there's a lot of use of baritone in ways that are just not traditional. And songs that seem a little bit more chill, they're also baritone, but you'll hear things. They use guitar tones that are very smart and not traditional as well. But I got excited about it because Dustin switched to using Helix for everything. So all of his guitar tracking on this record is Helix. Timpe used HX effects in combination with some real amps on that, and that's what they used to tour too. So literally the sounds Dustin used on the record are the sounds he's using live. Just really cool, really, really smart, inventive. It's a similar feeling to me as what I got from the Alchemy Index, and like, oh, they did this at home. They're basically using the same tools I have, which is super inspiring to me to be like, oh, I have these things. I have this ability. I'm using the same software. I'm using the same guitar processors. Like, very easily could get in the mode of feeling confident to write with those tools because a band I respect and admire has done that. But yeah, if you aren't familiar with their latter work, basically past Visu, Beggars in particular, and the Alchemy Index is cool, but Beggars would be what I would lean you towards. And this record are just really good examples of incredible songwriting. And just every record, dude, it seems like as dude ages, his voice kind of ages too in a way that's interesting.
He did a country album too in that hiatus
they
had, which I remember being fucking amazing.
Yeah, so he did a one record right before in 2007 or 2008 or something like that called Please Come Home, which is a country record too, like a solo release. That record is great. Sorry, I'm forgetting one of the records the record that when I played with them, they were touring on right before they separated. Major Minor. There's some brilliant songwriting on that record too. Just all across the board, but I feel like the records that they really kind of woodshed on are the records that ended up being the most interesting and brave, I guess, in some aspects. But yeah, Kinsru did the Please Come Home, and then he did a record after that was acoustic country stuff, but it was very religious oriented. He did a couple of solo records that were pretty religious. He did a Christmas record,
Oh yeah, I think I remember that as well.
and yeah, then they got back together. But yeah, I don't know if you want to like listen to a record that any of these records, I would say Beggars in particular, and this most recent one, and just realize like this is just a home recording, like on a. It's I mean, sure they've got some gear. They're wealthy fellow, not wealthy, but they have money from touring, and I'm sure they have some decent equipment and outboard gear and stuff. But at the heart of it, it's still, just somebody's home studio with some decent stuff, but just a bunch of guys that are been playing together for almost 20 years, and they're incredibly talented writing a record together. And they don't have any of the punk rock, like the pop punk aesthetic at this point. They kind of lost that a long time ago, but I don't know. Like if you look on, I'm sure it says that if you click on if you click on Artist in the Ambulance or Illusion of Safety, I don't know what year that came out. You're very tiny on my screen, so I can't.
2015, 2003. I mean,
okay. So from 2003 to when click on Visu, the one with like the crazy Ouija looking thing on it.
yeah, this is the album I spent like 2 years listening to Thrice, almost exclusively. It was this album and those
Alchemy Index.
Yeah, the Alchemy ones.
Well, what year did Visu come out?
2005.
Okay, so if you really think of it in comparison, how much difference there is from just those two records, and it's only a 2-year period.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty mind-blowing how much that band changed, and then especially if you go back to their first few releases, but then all the way through, like by the time they got to Beggars, which I think may be my favorite record of theirs in general, but it's just, I mean, like it's such a different band, and even more so now, like they're kind of an extension of those, experimental records now, and I think they just do whatever they want, which is super respectable. And the people that have stuck with them, like, and still go see them, like, know that like you'll get a little bit from every era, but at the same time, like, I mean, they have nearly 20 years of doing whatever the fuck they want now.
Yeah, man.
No, this record's great, and it's one of the few records they've put out. Like I liked the one before this one, Palms. I had a few songs I really loved, but the overall vibe of that record was kind of meh in comparison to this one. And To Be Everywhere is To Be Nowhere, which is the one before. I really loved that record, but that was like their comeback record.
Got it.
And I think they kind of intentionally embraced some old stuff from previous records, but there's songs on that like Black Honey and stuff that are just incredibly well written and really smart. So, but anyways, yeah, I could go on and on about that band forever, and I got a couple other records to get to, so we'll move on.
My buds are gonna die. I keep switching back and forth, so we might have to cut this short a little bit. Maybe pick up.
I can tell you very quickly what they are.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so my other one, which is not to be expected, I imagine, from me, is the Silk Sonic record, the Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak record. And I say that because it's just fucking incredible.
Yeah.
It's really well written. The songs are super catchy. It's very 70s vibe, very old school. Like
I got into a big Bruno kick this past year too. Like
that record is fucking banging. Like I don't there's some Bruno Mars that I absolutely hate, but like this record is the exception to the rule. Like my dad got in the car with me one day and I was listening to this, like, what is this? He's like, this is funky. I was like, it's Bruno Mars. He's like, what the fuck? Like, he's like, I don't listen to that stuff. I was like, I'm telling you, man, I don't either, but this record is fucking baller. Like Anderson .Paak I already love, like I have his hip hop stuff, but it's a nice combination, like live instrumentation, really well thought out stuff with the melodies. Bootsy Collins is on it, which is fucking legit. Like he opens the record, he sings in a couple of songs. Like it's a dope record from front to back, man. Like if you like
cool,
if you like soul stuff at all, and you like the 70s funk era stuff, or even like the Marvin Gaye stuff, like this record is like, it's recorded old school to tape. Like it sounds like those records. The drums are just room mics. Like it's fucking cool. The whole record is incredible. And
Fantastic.
the singing between both of them and the way they're playing off each other, it's fucking slick. There's the Leave the Door Open, which was the big hit off of that record. If you really pay attention to some of the stuff that's happening with the vocal placement, like the first chorus, Bruno sings it on the beat. The second chorus, he sings it behind the beat, but it doesn't feel wrong. It's just, and God, I mean, the whole thing, man. It's just a straight up, it's a dope fucking record. It's worth messing.
Yeah, I forgot all about this. So this is
Dude,
awesome.
I'm still listening to it. It was what I was listening to in the car driving around today.
Nice.
And my last one is, and which what I had as my number one record of the year was the Hiatus Kaiyote Mood Valiant. It's just, man. I mean, I've messaged you about them a few times.
Yep.
They're literally the most respected and adored, like modern musician, modern band in the world in regards to hip hop sampling. So like Kendrick Lamar, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Drake, Anderson .Paak, Chance the Rapper, all have sampled their songs for their songs, but we're talking in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Usually when you hear of people getting sampled, it's shit that they find in like vinyl crates and shit. Like Hiatus is just so fucking good and cool with the groove choices and melodies and stuff that all these highly respectable pop acts and rappers are sampling them. You're good, dude. We're getting ready to wrap it up.
Yeah, and this is going to be a regular show, so
I think we're going to shoot for at least once a month with this. I would like to do it more if possible, but once a month is the safe bet.
Yeah, guaranteed once a month, but we both do have hopes to do it more often than that. You know, we both got shit we're working on, so
right.
Yeah, dope, dude.
That record is incredible. If you are a musician and you want to take a master class on counting, there's some stuff on this record that's stuff. If I said this to Nick privately, but the thing to me that differentiates someone who's just like a virtuoso musician, because I find that to be very boring most of the time, from someone who's a true musician that is just a really incredible player, is when you can write a song that's in an odd time structure, like 5s and 7s, and it feels like 4, like where the groove and things of that nature don't feel off, but if you actually do listen to them, they're incredibly off and incredibly smart musically. The way that I don't know, man, everybody in this band is an incredible musician. They're literally world-class jazz musicians. Everyone in this band is.
Yeah.
But they're doing it in a way it's not jazz, you know what I mean? Like if you look, it's like almost funk, but it's and soul oriented, but I don't know. They're all Australian jazz musicians, classically trained people, and they're doing music that doesn't feel like it's coming from people that are so stuck in that book learning world of music.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, Nay's guitar playing is incredible and inventive, and if you really pay attention to it, when it hits, like, I don't know, man, you'll hear stuff like there's this song Get Sun that has an orchestra on it. That's the placement of the orchestra is really brilliant, but if you listen to where the guitar sits in contrast to the other instruments, it doesn't make any sense, but it's there. And it's always in empty spaces. But if you think about the fact she's singing on top of playing this stuff that's in a weird meter, and she's playing in a compound time signature to them, and it's just there's a lot happening. It's brilliant, man. It's literally my favorite record in this year, and I still at least once a day I end up listening to one of the songs. I've listened to Rosewater twice today just because it's crazy. But the play between the bass and the keyboardist, they bounce back and forth. But it's not like he plays a thing like a run and then I play a run. It's like he plays a note, but the second note is here. But the two of them will combine in a way that becomes like the third of that. It's brilliant stuff. It's really inspiring. I don't know that I will ever make music like this because I'm just not that good. but it definitely makes me excited about playing guitar and like, oh, okay, there's things you can do that haven't been done still, I think, to some degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's, again,
Sick.
there's derivative things, like they kind of have elements of the neo soul stuff going on, but at the same time they're doing it in a way that feels fresh. So worth checking out. But yeah, that's it, man. And Limp Bizkit put out a record. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Pliny too, or Pliny, whatever, how you say his name. I don't know if it's good. I think some of that stuff kind of can burn me out.
Yeah, that Pliny album is good, but also I don't know. I guess I shouldn't comment on it. I haven't listened enough to. I
It's
give up
good.
too quickly on it. I
It's
think.
good. He's clearly a very fantastic guitar player. The Polyphria or whatever, I don't know, Polyphia or whatever that band is
Yeah.
called. They do nothing for me. I realize they're very good guitar players, but it's meh.
Yeah.
But then I think it's kind of my point, is like things like Hiatus Kaiyote are on an equal, if not surpassed, level of musicianship. But it doesn't feel like, hey, look at me, you know?
Yep.
And that's the thing that I think other people end up respecting about them, and why so many musicians use them and sample their music, is because it's technical, but it's interesting. It has a groove, and it's not a show off thing. So, but
Yeah.
I get it. If you're great, I mean, fuck, I don't know. I can't play half the shit that Pliny and the fucking dudes in this bands can play. I can't do this shit.
No kidding.
So,
Um,
anyway, we should wrap it up.
Yeah, I had a few more. I'll just rattle them off real quick. I had not from 2021, but from 2020, Miley Cyrus's "Plastic Hearts," which got me into Miley. Mad respect for that chick's voice, and her cover of "Heart of Glass" by Blondie is ridiculous. And then I have the new "Failure" album that came out in 2021.
Yeah, that's
Which
on my
I'm
list. I just didn't get to it.
still listening to, really enjoying. The fucking
Wow.
song, the album opens so strongly, it's ridiculous.
Wild Type Void is the name of that record.
Yes, Wild Type Droid.
Droid, yeah. Headstand, I think, is the first song that's like a full song on that, right? Which is a great song.
And it, like, I don't know, there's like, I get glimpses of a bunch of different bands and genres on that album. It's fucking great. And then I'm a prog rock, like a light prog rock nerd. And so Steven Wilson, The Future Bites, was an album that came out last year. And I love Steven Wilson. He used to be in Porcupine Tree. Porcupine Tree apparently is going to make new music, so that's exciting for me. But yeah, that's some of it. Now I'm excited to listen to a bunch of music again, so this is cool.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I actually have to pee really bad, so I'm stoked that we're wrapping up.
Me as well. So we will wrap it. That was a nice long one. So
Yeah,
thank
for
you
a
guys for
first one, it
hanging
was pretty
out.
cool.
Yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for keeping the conversation going. Um, if all else fails, you'll see us in a month, but we're going to try and do it a little more frequently. We'll squeeze it in
Yeah,
when we can.
we'll let you know a
And
little bit further in advance.
yeah, we're going to try and give you more of a heads up. But we wanted to get it started. We've been talking about it for a couple weeks, and we just fucking wanted to get it going. So cool. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome.
Good hanging out. We'll see you around.